DGC Requiem, we're back with match 3 of Shadow Faeries. We'll be on the play. Shahi. Yeah, this is good. Assuming our opponent isn't on Burn or Dredge, this is a good hand. We'll ideally look for a way to toss the second Bitter Blossom, although there is the possibility that we just go for it anyway. But we're going to keep this. We're going to do a bit of damage to ourselves. So long as our opponent isn't on Burn or so I still think we probably need to end up, I mean, we're definitely going to run out Tarmogoyf. The problem is we just don't have that many main deck ways to pitch Bitter Blossom. Man, talk about brutal set of matchups here. So we got Naya Burn, Boros Burn, Naya Burn, whatever you want to call it. He has 2 lands. We can kind of stabilize the Swift Spear. He's going to get the other cards into the graveyard by himself. Honestly, I kind of want to take Lightning Bolt, but both bolts can actually target Tarmogoyf. So we're actually gonna. Oh man, we can't even cast Tarmogoyf because both of his bolts can kill it. We're just gonna take the creature, the recurring source of damage, because we are probably at this point. If he ends up Rift Bolting here, which is the assumption, yeah. So we can't play Tarmogoyf because I believe Rift Bolt's a sorcery. Yeah. So we are gonna just, well, and Rift Bolt is what, 3 CMC? I think we're gonna just play Bitter Blossom here. As terrible as it is, it actually turns our Spell Stutter on, and we're just gonna try and race him, and we're probably gonna lose. But what am I gonna do? I suppose I could have made him spend his Alright. So look at this. Bitter Blossom is gonna do short work of us. We can't even Spell Stutter Sprite the next one. Yeah, I definitely should have just played out the Tarmogoyf. If he ends up killing the Tarmogoyf with a sorcery, yeah, that's terrible. Bad play, bro. Oh, Architects of Will's pretty decent. Surprised he didn't throw that at us on his turn. So if he draws a land, we're dead either way. Yep. That's a turn 4 loss. So a little interesting that he decided to show us the Exquisite Firecraft. I guess he probably did it because we were holding up 1 mana, maybe thinking we're Spell Piercing. But he was in pretty strong position there. Lose turn 4. So, We definitely want the stubborn denials. We definitely want these, probably want the abrupt decays. And it's possible that we want... He may not realize that we are actually playing Tarmogoyfs. I would think he probably does, but let's see here. We need to protect ourselves. Street Wraith are not as good as Thoughtseize. Thoughtseize at least is taking something out of the opponent's hands. So, while you're doing 2 damage to yourself, you're stopping your opponent from doing 3 or 4 damage to you. I think Thoughtseize will be the other card we cut. Spellstutter has enough stuff that it can counter on its own that I'm okay keeping that in. I don't know that we want the second Vendilion Click, however. So I'm good with that. It's possible that we actually want both, or all 3 Thoughtseizes in, but so the nice thing about this hand is we don't have to run out. I mean, we do have a turn 1 play. Really, ideally, we want our turn 1 play ripping his hand, turn 2 Tarmogoyf. I also don't particularly want to be spending my Traverse to just go get a land to try and make Tarmogoyf big enough. I actually think we have to mulligan here. If this was the draw, I think I would keep this. It wouldn't be a great keep. The odds of him having a creature is just too high. Paired with Liliana. Yeah, we're going to mulligan here. Not much better. Assume we're getting a creature run down here. Inquisition is still strong. Just don't want to spend that much time getting damaged. I think we're just gonna go get the swamp. Oh, and excellent. We actually hit Tarmogoyf. That couldn't have gone any better. We're probably going to get a breeding pool here, so that way we have access to the Vendilion Click later. And our opponent's stuck on 1 land, so we're actually going to hold up the Spellstutter sprite. We're actually just planning to ride Stubborn Denial and Spellstutter here to victory. Yep, and so our opponent just concedes. We would have beaten him over the next couple turns anyway. On the draw, we're just, oh, this is just so hairy. I almost feel like we probably want the Thoughtseize back in over the Vendilion Click. I don't think Vendilion Click does a whole lot. Just puts a lot of strain on our mana base. It's possible the Fulminators would be worth it, but I don't really think they're that good unless you're playing against the Naya versions. Surgical Extraction isn't that worthwhile. Oh, and hold on, my daughter just came in. I'll be back in a moment. Alright, I'm back. Sorry about that. My daughter was sleepwalking, just like her old man did at that age. So this actually looks like a pretty good hand. We can fetch for a breeding pool, probably tapped on our first turn. We have the ability to collect Brutality, Fatal Push, and Inquisition, or Abrupt Decay, whatever we're looking to do, and a Spell Stutter Sprite. Ideally, I mean, we definitely want to draw into some sort of creature soon, but we have a strong hand, and so I think we're definitely good with this. When our opponent's mulligan down to 5, so Collective Brutality could be pretty strong, especially if he starts out with a creature and we get to really 3-for-1 him. How about a second Collective Brutality? So the question here is do we Inquisition or Fatal Push? I think I've kind of pinched myself out now, where I guess if we're planning to throw away the Abrupt Decay, I think we're just fetching for a sideways land here, and we're just going to plan to collect a Brutality. Oh, that is a great land. So by drawing that, we can actually go for a black-green land here, and if we wanted to, we could kill the Goblin Guide. I think we are just going to go for the Fatal Push here, because if he's holding, with seeing the Stomping Ground, he potentially is on Nakatl, or at the very least has Atarka's commands. I don't know. Alright. So we're not in a rush to do anything with the collective there. I think we're just going to go ahead and play the swamp. We're going to Brutality for 2 modes. We're probably just going to pitch the Inquisition, because that's what we would have done anyway. We're definitely taking the Skull Crack. We don't care so much about him gaining life, but we don't want him stopping us from gaining on our second Brutality. He doesn't know we have a second Brutality. And if he waits to cast it, Spellsetter's not going to do anything anyway. Alright, so we are in a position now where we could hard cast Architects of Will, potentially. Next turn. Before we do anything stupid, let's make sure we got the right cards here. Yeah. And we actually even have a fetch to filter our draws. With Collective Brutality, this should be pretty decent. And then our Verdant can go get us the other card. So we don't want any of those, but this actually gives us something to do with Collective Brutality. We'll take the first one and then throw away the second. That's quite a hit. Lava Spike would have not been the best. So the thing is we definitely don't want all of those lands. So we'll play... Oh, the problem here, though. It's not a whole lot we can do. We just got to do the life. We're really kind of counting on Spell Stutter Sprite here to be able to counter something. So the reason I'm not cracking the fetch, even though I probably need to, is because if he has a Boros Charm, we're just kind of dead. So now we know that it's a Rift Bolt. We're willing to crack it a little bit here. Stubborn Denial, oh my gosh. Oh, Stubborn Denial is so close to being good, yet not. If he has one more spell in hand, it could be decent. So we can't counter Rift Bolt because it's going to require... We need him to try and crack off to a 1 CMC spell or a... It's just going to be a hard cast Rift Bolt. Exquisite Firecraft. Oh, the Stubborn Denial would have actually gotten it. What a bummer. What a bummer. Burn, burn, burn. Alright, well, so that put us to, and of course, per usual, I am terrible, terrible, terrible at keeping the match status up to date. So we lost a burn 1-2, not surprising we lost. A little bummed. I think we're learning some stuff though. It's possible we really need to make sure that we do still have like the 4 traverses in. The part of it though is, we're playing these weird matchups where we're pulling out, you know, the cards that do damage to ourselves that keep the deck nice and tight, right? We're pulling out, a lot of the synergistic features of the deck because we're getting hit against bad matchups. Now, part of the reason we're probably getting hit against bad matchups is because the meta is saying, hey, Death Shadow, I see you. Fine. I'll bring some burn to the field. I'll bring some dredge to the field, and so it's not terribly surprising. Plus, on top of that, we're playing a slower version. I actually have a different version, which if I have time, I'll try and at least get a deck tech up on it. That I've been playing more regularly offline here. I just wanted to play this tonight to get some videos out there on it because it's fun. Like I said, it may not be the best version of Shadow. It is a version. It has strengths that the other versions do not. However, I think it's better in probably a grindier meta, but I think the meta is starting to get more aggressive to try and beat the Shadow deck. And so the other version that I have is a more aggressive version of the Jun Shadow. And so far, I've run it through 2 leagues. I went 5-0 in the first league and 3-2 in the second league. But it was a close 3-2. Like, it was very close to being 5-0 within probably like 2 to 3 draw steps of being a 5-0 league. So, anyway, point being is I think probably the best way to be going with Jund right now, or the Shadow decks rather, is to be going with more aggressive Jund Shadow decks. If you're going to be playing the Shadow decks, this is probably not the best way because the meta seems to be adjusting. But anyway, we'll be back with fourth match shortly.